All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Believe in Bills, the reality check edition. Probably a good description, right, Sal?
Yeah, that was a reality check. That was a kick in the ass, as they several Bills said in the locker room. They played terrible, and they admitted it. But look, Baltimore also played very well tonight. You could tell that was a motivated team, Adam, coming in. They're 1-2, and we're fortunate to win last week against Dallas. They almost blew that game. So that was a team that certainly came in with a lot to prove. They're at home on a Sunday night, and I think the Bills it was one of those cases where they were in the wrong place at the wrong time in this game, and they had really no chance in the game.
Yeah, and we'll get into the specifics of this matchup. Baltimore's a very difficult team to match up against. We'll talk more about that, but let's put a little perspective on this. You pointed out in your post-game article of the Democrat and Chronicle, first time in 43 regular season games, the Bills have lost by more than 6 points.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, a 35-10 loss on the road to Baltimore is an aberration. On the flip side of that, and I certainly don't want to take anything away from Buffalo's 3-0 start, but I mean, hindsight is, those teams now are combined 2-9 as we speak.
Yeah.
Right? So,
right.
As always, the truth is somewhere in between. But I think this game did a lot to validate a lot of the concerns we had about this team heading into the regular season. They all kind of came to the surface and came to fruition tonight, or many of them did.
Yeah, they really did, Adam. I mean, look, the Cardinals, I don't think the Cardinals are a very good team. I mean, we saw that today. They got waxed by the Commanders, but they played well that day, and they gave Buffalo a good fight for, pretty much the whole 4 quarters that day. Miami was horrible, and Jacksonville was horrible. We didn't learn really anything about the Bills in those 2 games. I thought we learned more about the Bills in that Arizona game, the way they got off the mat and came back and won. And now I think we learned a little bit about the Bills tonight, that they are a team that you can get into matchup situations and take advantage of. And, tonight, Adam, was the first time where it really showed, not having Bernard, Matt Milano, Taron Johnson, then losing Taylor Rapp during the game. It was a cute little story for a while there, right? All these backups coming in, the UB reunion every week on the field. But eventually that was going to catch up to the Bills, and that caught up big time tonight. Baltimore just took advantage, I thought in particular, of Williams and Spector in the middle of the field. Derrick Henry did whatever he wanted. Their offensive line dominated. But the Bills' linebacking, we saw it on the 2 touchdown passes. Dorian Williams got burned by Justice Hill, and then Nicholas Morrow was on the field for some reason. I have no idea why he's even on the team, but he had to be out there for the play that Derrick Henry caught his touchdown pass. So the Bills have some clear areas of weakness, and it just kind of finally came to fruition, in this game tonight.
Now, when they give up Buffalo in all 427 total yards.
Yeah, it was brutal.
Right? I mean, Henry goes for $199 and starts off with an 87-yard touchdown run. I mean, it was downhill from the very beginning. That speaks a little bit to what I mentioned off of the top. I mean, you have the mobility and the threat of Lamar Jackson through the air as well. And then for them to pick up Derrick Henry and look at that dimension that he adds. Chris Collinsworth pointed this out of the broadcast, and I agree. As things evolve during the course of a season, Baltimore, I think, could be a very tough out when it gets late in the year and into the post, assuming they stay healthy. And I think the Bills bore kind of the brunt of that matchup situation tonight, just how difficult they are, especially when they dominate the line of scrimmage as they did in this game.
Look, Sean McDermott said this early in the week. We asked him several questions about Derrick Henry, and we know the Bills have a tormented past against Henry. He's killed them before when he played for Tennessee. But McDermott said him coming to Baltimore was literally a marriage made in heaven. What better team for Derrick Henry to go to than the Ravens, who love to run the ball. They love to grind it out, kick your ass up and down the field. He literally fits in perfectly with this team. Last week, all the writers down in Dallas were asking Jerry Jones, a team that has no running backs, how did you not sign Derrick Henry? And he claimed poverty, that he couldn't afford him, which was complete BS. But any team could have had Derrick Henry, right? And the Ravens were the ones that went and got him because they knew he would fit perfectly with what they want to do. They want to mash you, with Lamar Jackson running and Henry. They don't even need to throw the ball if they've got those two guys working the way they did tonight. So it was a bad matchup for the Bills. Derrick Henry has killed Buffalo in the past. This is nothing new. But that first play of the game, Adam, you kind of felt, right? I mean, just watching that play unfold, you knew what kind of night it was going to be. He was untouched. I'm not sure I've ever seen a guy go 87 yards and not have a fingertip laid on him, but that's exactly what happened on that play.
Does it, we had talked about this in the preseason, and they had seemed to recover from it, but in terms of, you talked about Baltimore and the approach they take, the very physical nature, I mean, that's just kind of in their DNA. It's what we've seen from them and what fans have seen from them over the years, and then you add a Derrick Henry on top of that, and that was painfully obvious for Buffalo, but how much concern do you have about the physical nature of this game and how Buffalo is simply overmatched? And I think that applies to both sides of the ball.
Yeah, well, I don't think many of us, Adam, consider the Bills an overly physical team, right? I mean, they do. They have some physical players. I'm not saying they don't, but they are definitely more of a finesse team on that Sean McDermott defense, right? It's always been, keep everything in front of you, limit the gains, get off the field on third down. The Bills have never been a team that's going to go out there and just bang your brains out, right? Unless they're getting way ahead in the game and they pin their ears back and come after a quarterback. They just aren't a strong physical team the way, say, Baltimore can play, the way Baltimore played tonight. There are several teams that play like the Ravens do, and the Bills just, when the Bills face those teams, I think those are the ones where they struggle the most against, and they need Josh Allen to be Superman in those situations. And generally, that's enough to get them through. Tonight, it wasn't nearly enough. Josh had no chance in this game. He was running for his life for most of the game. How many times did we see him flushed out of the pocket, running to the sideline, and it's getting closer and closer and closer, and there was still nowhere to throw the ball? It was just happening all night long. And, if he has a great game tonight, and makes all those plays, maybe it's much closer. I don't think the Bills would have won either way, but that just never happened. The Ravens put their foot on his throat all night long and never let up.
He was never in rhythm. That offense was never in rhythm. It was never. We saw something. We saw some things out of the running game. We did see the running game at time, but I'm talking in terms of Allen orchestrating and running that offense. He was disrupted all night long.
Yeah, he was under pressure. He was never on schedule all night. How many times have we seen Josh Allen drop back and immediately get pressure the way he got tonight? There were probably, I think he threw 29 passes. If he dropped back 7 or 8 times where he could actually pat the ball and scan the field, that was probably a lot. He was constantly being flushed out of the pocket. And then also, the first 3 games, they relied on their short passing game, right? Take what the defense gives you. Allen was taking the check downs. It was working because those are the kinds of players that he has to get the ball to, right? Curtis Samuel works that way to a degree. Keon Coleman does. Obviously, Shakir. And then, James Cook as the running back. They're good on those particular plays. But, Adam, Buffalo's lack of a downfield passing game is going to come back to bite them. And this was the first indication of that tonight. Baltimore was very good in the short areas of the field. They've got Kyle Hamilton is a terrific safety. Their corners, their linebackers, they were good in the short areas. And that immediate pressure, of course, forced Allen to, like we said, run for his life and just throw the ball wherever he could. But this team has got to find a way to get the ball downfield. Keon Coleman had a great chance. It was 21-3, second quarter. He had a great chance to make a big play. He was open. The ball was perfect, and he drops it. And the Bills end up getting nothing. They go into the half down 21-3. He made a couple nice contested catches later in the game, but, it was few and far between for the Bills. They've got to find a way to get the ball downfield, Adam. I don't know how they're going to do it. They do not have a wide receiver group that really is capable of doing it. Matt Collins sure as hell isn't going to do it. Shakir does what he does, and he's terrific. Curtis Samuel, I don't know what Curtis Samuel is right now. I mean, that was their big free agent signing, right? 3 years, $24 million. He's been, to me, a vast disappointment. I know he battled injury, but he has not given them really anything so far. He had a play downfield, I think, that he dropped too. I can't recall. I thought there was one that he could have made a play on and didn't make it. So I don't know. Joe Brady has gotten a lot of kudos, a lot of flowers the first 3 games for his game plans and what he was doing. But this, like you said, this was a real wake-up call for the Bills, and they're going to have to find a way to tweak this offense to get it to be able to be more explosive down the field.
I do think a lot of this league is matchup based, right? Yeah. And so Baltimore's a team that's able to exploit a lot of the Bills' weaknesses. So I don't want to go too far with this next statement, but it's also a copycat league, right? You put something on film and other teams are going to emulate that, right? And this is an example. I'm not saying other teams can generate the pressure that Baltimore did as effectively and consistently as they did in this game, but this is how you limit this particular offense. And the lack of a downfield passing game is it's so critical because it stretches the defense. It opens things up underneath. And Baltimore they never really considered that a threat. It was obvious the way they played this thing. So I think you're right. And then what makes it even more maddening is that in the second half, when they finally get things going, when we start to see a rhythm and they're moving the football, all of a sudden they decide to get cute. Yeah. And call the flea flicker. Brutal. And it blows up. Yep. It's an absolute disaster, and they turn the football over. I'm not quite sure why they go to that play then, when things are finally working for them in the game.
Yeah, you're right. It was a very curious play call. Look, hindsight is always 20/20, as we know. But I tweeted this during the game. I generally hate trick plays. They don't work most of the time. Yeah, once in a while, you're going to surprise a team and you're going to make a huge play on a trick play. But more times than not, because they don't rep those plays, they'll rep them a little bit during the week because they put it in the game plan. But it's not like a normal offensive play where you're repping constantly and you get good at certain things. These are like everything has to go perfectly, Adam, for a trick play to work. And I just thought it was a terrible time to call it. Now, yeah, if it had worked and he throws a touchdown pass, we're all throwing our arms up in the air and exuding, praise on Joe Brady. But most of the time, those plays don't work. You see it all the time in the NFL. They work in college, right? College kids fall for that stuff all the time. But generally in the pros, if a team sees Curtis Samuel lined up in the backfield taking the snap, right away they know something's going on. That play is not going to work. It was stupidly conceived, and the timing of it, when it was 21-10 and the Bills finally had some momentum on their side, they're near midfield going in to make it a one-score game. It really did. I'm not going to say it turned the game around because the game was turned around early on and it never turned back in the Bills' favor, but it was starting to move in Buffalo's favor until that play blew it all up.
And so just one more kind of point on this, Sal, and that is, we've seen good offensive coordinators make these kind of mistakes. I mean, these guys have to push it, right? I'm trying, and I'll be interested in hearing from Joe Brady on this and to whatever extent he can explain it, or they don't oftentimes don't want to go too far into strategy or whatever. But I think back to a few years ago, the loss to Pittsburgh in the opener. Remember, Daboll's still the offensive coordinator at the time. They tried the flea flicker and it blew up. So I get it. He's an offensive coordinator, or was, that would push the edge of the envelope and that sort of thing. And Ken Dorsey was kind of more stuck in his ways. Brady's been more consistent in terms of the results and successful. So I get how this creeps in. I just don't understand the timing of it in the game at that point when positive things are happening and it all just gets tossed away.
Yeah, it was frustrating to watch. I mean, there was just no need for it. The timing was terrible. And again, look, if it had worked, it would have been interesting to see what would have happened if the play had worked, they had scored, and now Baltimore's on their heels. Remember, Baltimore blew a big lead in this building 2 weeks ago to the Raiders and lost. And this one was 21-3. And at the time of the flea flicker, things were starting to move towards the building. I'm sure on the Ravens sideline, and the fans certainly were, you could feel it in the stadium. that they were starting to get frustrated. I'm sure the Baltimore sideline was thinking, oh, here we go again. We've got a game in hand and we're pissing it away here. And then they just were given a gift on that play. And look, let's not blame Curtis Samuel and Josh Allen for the whole failure too. What happened on that play is the left side of the Bills line got blown up. Kyle Van Noy blew through and got to Samuel, which messed the whole timing of the play. And then he makes a great play because he keeps going. He follows the ball and then goes after Allen, and he's the guy who hit him and forced the fumble. So it was a great play by Kyle Van Noy to blow it up, but the Bills' offensive line needs to take some of the blame too, because as was the case all night long, the Ravens were getting way too much penetration. And on one of the biggest plays of the game, it killed the Bills.
Yeah, no question about it. It speaks to the line of scrimmage point that we made before, and in no way were they fooled by that play in any stretch of by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, and there again, Adam, when you put a running or a wide receiver back at quarterback, and you put the quarterback out to the, what the hell are you trying to do? What are you trying to fool? They know it's a trick play, so now their antenna is already immediately up. You know, because I really didn't think that Samuel was going to take the direct snap and run. I mean, I thought for sure as soon as they did that, something's happened. Either he's going to throw a pass to Allen or they're going to try the flea flicker. Turns out it was the flea flicker. I don't know. We could talk about that play all night, and I'm sure it'll be dredged up tomorrow when we talk to Brady on the Zoom call. It probably needs to just be dead and buried and forgotten all about. But, yeah, it was a big play, and it was a bad play. And it hurt. I don't think the Bills were going to come back and win this game, Adam. I really don't. I think if they had scored there, I still think the Ravens were going to regain control. The Bills hadn't stopped them, really. The first 3 drives were touchdowns. They did have a couple stops in the middle of the game. But I had a sense that Baltimore was going to come back and answer regardless. So I don't think it really mattered in the grand scheme of things.
Not when you're losing in the trenches in the big picture, like the Bills were losing in the trenches in this game. And then you have, the skill position and then the power in the backfield with a Henry and all of those things that we've talked about. I want to touch on a couple of things. You had mentioned Keon Coleman and the drop. And then a couple of good back shoulder catches, well thrown by Josh. He recovered from that. He gets benched for the first quarter last week against Jacksonville, comes back out and gets in the end zone. Look, the kid should have made the catch tonight. Yeah. There's no question. You got to make that catch as an upper echelon receiver, as a receiver, period, in the National Football League. But I do see some resilience in game as we're starting to kind of learn more about him. That I like.
Yeah. I mean, clearly he's got physical talent, Adam. I mean, being drafted him where he drafted him for a reason. The kid does have some physical skill. And I think he does have good hands. It was unfortunate that he dropped that ball there, but you can tell he has strong hands, physical. He can go up and get it. Contested catches were his thing at Florida State, and that was why he got picked where he got picked. But the consistency is not there yet, right? He's a rookie. It's his 4th game. And he had the disciplinary thing, which is unfortunate. So, I never thought. I mean, I think we may have talked about it on the show, but I know just talking with the media guys here, and I might have even read it or written it, that I did not expect many more than 40 to 45 catch. Everyone was thinking that, he's going to catch 70 or 80 passes. No way. I mean, if he catches 40 balls this year, that'll be, to me, I think, a good season for him, because I don't think he is certainly not in that category with a Malik Neighbors or Marvin Harrison. There is definitely separation. Even though he was the first pick of the second round, there is big separation between the top guys in that last draft and Keon Coleman. So it was nice to see him make those 2 plays, good bounce back for him, but the consistency has got to improve if he's going to make a mark. And we talked about early in the show, the downfield passing, he's the key to that. That's a guy that can get downfield and, throw the ball up in the air and let him go get it. Those are the chunk plays that the Bills need, and he produced a couple here tonight.
Just a couple of points before we wrap it up, but the last one relative to this game specifically tonight. How concerned are you about Tyler Bass?
Man, it was a bad miss. Man, when he misses, he misses. Holy smoke. I mean,
yeah,
that thing was gone. That was gone left from the moment it left his foot. It's a problem. I mean, he drilled the one. He's been really good on extra points. I'm not going to blame him for the blocked extra point last week. That wasn't his fault. But, these field goals, He's got to make these kicks, Adam. 48 yards in September. There was no wind here tonight. The field was fine. There's just no excuse to miss these kicks. There's too many kickers in the NFL that make 50-yarders blindfolded. And he's missing from, what was the one he missed in Miami was 45, I think. This is 48. I have no confidence, Adam, that if the game was on the line tonight and they had to send him out there for a kick between 45 and 50, I really don't have any confidence that he's going to make it. And that's not a good place for a football team to be. You need your kicker in the year 2024 to be making 50-yard field goals with his eyes blinded. And this kid's not doing it right now.
Especially when, you look at the way the Bills handled things for the most part in the first 3 games, really the last 2, right? They're going to be a lot closer than that moving forward here. And it's just amazing because, this is a guy who won, AFC Special Teams Player of the Month, I think it was last year.
Yeah.
And to have
Adam,
seen
his first 4 seasons, first 3.5 seasons, I guess, he was terrific. I had all the confidence in the world that if he went out there to kick a field goal, he was going to make it. You realize, I looked this up last week. In career all-time field goal percentage, he's like 25th all-time with his career field goal percentage. Now, here's the caveat to that. 14 guys are ahead of him on that list who are active right now. So that means he's 14th right now in career field goal percentage. That's not good. That's not good at all. You need to be much better than that. So, there's too many kickers around the league that are blasting the ball, almost every time they kick it. And Tyler Bass, I just don't have any faith that he's going to go out there and get the job done in a big spot for sure.
It makes me shake my head. We've both been covering sports for a long time, right? But confidence we know is a fleeting thing. And boy, Tyler Bass continues to struggle with it, it would seem. All right. Yeah. So
and what sucks about that too is when you're a team like the Bills that's they're a legitimate playoff contender. They're going to be in huge games. Now, there's a big game coming up next week in Houston, right?
Right.
You got to have your kicker. You got to have faith in your kicker that he's going to score points for you when he's called on to do it. The Bills would rather be scoring touchdowns. They'd rather be going for it on 4th and short and try to get a touchdown. But when they have to settle for a field goal, he's got to make them. And if he doesn't, that's going to be a problem in a lot of close games that the Bills are going to be playing this year.
All right, so now it is on to the Houston Texans. We talked about this 3-game stretch on the road here. Tough one in Baltimore tonight, on the road at Houston, and then on the road against the Jets. But next up, the Texans. And I suppose you're ready for a lot of drama this week, right?
Well,
because where it involves Stephon Diggs, whether he's in a Buffalo uniform or a Houston uniform, there always seems to be plenty.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be the big storyline all week long, and we in the media will beat it into the ground like we always do, Adam. Look, it's not about Stephon Diggs as far as I'm concerned. The Bills are going to be coming off a terrible loss now. They got to go to Houston and get back on the horse and take care of business. It's not going to be easy. In fact, it's going to be really difficult. And if they play the way they played tonight, Adam, 3-0 is going to turn into 3-3 really quick because they're not going to beat the Texans. And they're going to have a tough time. Well, I think they're going to have a tough time beating the Jets. After what I saw today from the Jets, who gave the Bills a huge break, it made this loss way more palatable because the Jets did not tie them for first place by losing to the Bo Nix Broncos, for crying out loud. So the Bills caught a break there. But if they play like this in New York, they're going to lose to the Jets on a Monday night and Houston next week.
And it is fair to point out with some of the stats we gave off of the top. Losses like this for Buffalo under Sean McDermott have been very much the exception and not the rule.
Yeah, it's the worst loss they've had since the Colts game in 2021.
Right. So,
we're
talking about an aberration here, hopefully. And that speaks to the fact that to listen to Sean McDermott tonight talk after the game, he said he wished he had a 5-hour plane ride instead of 1 hour back to Buffalo from Baltimore because there's so much that he needs to kind of diagnose and figure out moving forward. And in large part through the years in situations like this, McDermott and his staff have had answers.
They have. People get on McDermott. It drives me nuts. They all want to fire him and this and that. He is a really good coach, Adam. He just is. He's a very good coach, and he's got a lot of good coaches on his staff. Now, tonight, they got their asses kicked. He admitted it. Harbaugh and his staff completely out-schemed him. Their players outplayed the Bills. It was one of those nights. Like I said, they ran into a buzzsaw. They were in the wrong place at the wrong time. But in general, Sean McDermott's been a pretty damn good coach for the Buffalo Bills. His record indicates that, and you look at their defense and what he's able to do with that defense year in and year out. We've seen a lot of bad coaches in Buffalo, and this guy's not one of them. So fans need to get off you lose 35-10, it's all Sean McDermott's fault. It wasn't all Sean McDermott's fault or Joe Brady or Bobby Babbitt's fault tonight. Yeah, the players didn't play well, and that's on the coaches a little bit. But you know me, I've said this a million times, Adam. Players are out there making plays, not the coaches. And the players tonight did not make nearly enough plays to beat the Baltimore Ravens.
No, that is absolutely the takeaway, the primary takeaway from this game. A 35-10 loss for the Buffalo Bills at M&T Bank Stadium in Baltimore, where Sal Maiorana is with us tonight. You can read his work in the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle. I am Adam Benigni, WGRZ TV Buffalo, and a full recap with John Scott and Vic Carucci tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, Sports Talk Live on Channel 2. So for Sal Maiorana in Baltimore, I am Adam Benigni. Thank you for being with us on Believe in Bills.